are coming short. And I think that one of the things that we will need more in the future as the climate crisis continues to evolve, continues to hit us in an ever-expanding way, is the financial solutions. And we need financial solutions also for loss and damage. And we will see that the demand for this money will grow and grow and grow. So, I have a task for you, the panelists, the people who sit here with Tal Ronen. We need to create the International Climate Insurance Facility for the world. We need an international body, international organization that will be able to supply countries with insurance to help them face the effects of climate change. So I think that we are meeting here in Sharm el-Sheikh. In a year's time, we will meet again in Dubai, and you have 1 year to come with good ideas how we can make the climate insurance facility something workable, something that can help all the world. Now, we are here in the Middle East, and I want to say also a few words in Arabic, because we are part of a region and becoming more and more so. So, مساء الخير الضيوف الكرام. أريد أن أرحب بكم وأشكركم على اتجاه الوقت لحضور فعالياتنا اليوم. لدينا اليوم نخبة من الخبراء، وأريد أن أشكرهم شخصياً على تواجدهم هنا معنا. سيركز هدف اليوم على تقديم التطبيقات الحالية لتمويل أهداف التنمية المستدامة والعمل المناخي. سنعرض اليوم آلية إسرائيلية لإشراك التمويل من المستثمرين المؤسسين مثل صناعات التقاعد والتأمين. سنكتشف أيضا الطرق المبتكرة لتمويل الشركات الناشئة في مرحلتها الأولى والتوافق على أهداف التنمية المستدامة. أنا أتأمل أن هذا اللقاء يكون لقاء مفيد لكم وكلنا، عشان إحنا كلنا مع بعض ولازم نشترك مع بعض لمنع تغير المناخ وللمستقبل أحلى وأحسن لكل نسمة على هذا الكرة الأرضية. شكرا جزيلا. Thank you very much.
There was this moment where a couple of months when this event has begun, when Gideon and I and some other people managed to be in the MENA, Middle East and North Africa Climate Week in Dubai, and somehow in our own ways we managed to get to a room we weren't exactly invited. But we were there. It was all great, and there was all this ministers, Syria, everybody who didn't want to talk to us was there in the room, and we were sitting in the side. It was this afternoon, everybody's exhausted, and then Gideon raises his hand. Didn't say that we were Israel, there was no name, and he started with Arabic. I would never forget that moment of giving blessings from him. What happened in the room, the respect, the admiration, and the connection to the region was unbelievable. So when he came back from there, committed to bring about solutions. This is one of the solutions. One of the solutions we're here to embark upon is to strategize Israel, not only fintech, climate tech, and other techs, by financial tech, financial solutions tech, financial idea, financial instruments. So we're here today, and I want to start always with thanks, and I want to thank from the deepest feelings of my heart the team in the Foreign Ministry. It's a privilege to work with Karine. Karine Peretz is amazing organizing it. Yuval Lester from the other ministry, it was fantastic support. Ronit Nudelman, Amir Weisbrod, and all the organizers of the Pavillion. So always say shukran, right? Shukran. So thank you. I don't speak Arabic. I hear it, but I don't understand. I'd like to thank also Samar Haj here, the chairperson of Bank Leumi, is here with us, and the Bank Leumi team for their friendship and support to create real impact on the future. We embarked upon a venture that is a road less travel, the bank, the biggest bank, the first bank, and unfortunately the leading bank. I used to coach the other ones, but he's the leading bank, is moving forward and being here. So thank you very much, and we will hear from you in a short while with blessings as well. And especially to Kfir Mizrahi, who's here. Where's Kfir? Kfir is right here. Kfir is a really, I mean, you're talking about generative commitment. He is the head of the international operations in ESG, also from Bank Leumi. You know, wake up in the morning, you're going to find people like Kfir around you. Really. So thank you very much for everything. He leads the bank climate strategy, and that's the beginning starting here. Those of you who haven't met me, my name is Tal Ronen. I am Israeli by origin, and I'm here, the president and co-founder of YK Center. A company focuses on accelerating the adaptation of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. I really like it that I got the SDGs wall here, and I got the Americans right here. They got these videos of how bad things are. They're waking up in America. It's early morning now. I hope they wake up before it's too late. I want to also thank you, the SDG Israel team. We have a credible team led by Or Katzman, who's co-founded the SDGs as well. Where's Or? Or did some tremendous work bringing in and working with Professor Kahana and Moshe on the presentation. It's a game-changing presentation we'll see in a minute. Also, Yael Gini is the community director, is the Yael from SDGs. So if you haven't met her, you should. She's a force for good. And a good friend of mine said, if you want something to get done, give it to a mother with 2 kids who have no time, she'll get it done. Okay, and the Shmulik Schwartz, our COO, is here as well, and my co-founder and really colleague at YK Center, a man is full heart, is Professor Yehuda Kahane, is here. Some of you we know, some of you we haven't met yet, but today is the best day. Some people don't know, but we're going to be friends for a long time, as long as we stick around. In this event, we will showcasing real solutions from Israel to show that this little country has a real impact, not only agri-tech, as I said, food tech and so on, but also financial solutions. We want financial solutions everywhere and coming out of Israel. These solutions can support the SDGs on a national scale, as you'll see top down in a minute. We'll look at top down on the state level and then bottom up in support solution and climate actions to make Israel a real hub for solutions. And as we promised Gidon, the friends we met in Mina, in Abu Dhabi, being part of the region and serving the 1.5 billion people in our neighborhood. That's the numbers I think we have around North Africa and Middle East. Having said all of that, participating will be here with us Dr. Moshe Bereket, who has just completed his role as Director General of the Israeli Capital Market Insurance and Saving Authority. Thank you for being here. He's a very powerful part of our delegation and team. Yossi Abramovich, President and co-founder of Energia Global, will share with us about their work. Oren Kaplun, where's Oren? Oren right there. Co-founder of the Israeli Clean Money Forum, will be with us. And of course, Professor Yehuda Kahana, my partner, chairman and co-founder of YK Center. Now, on a personal note, Professor Kahana, 3 years ago, those of you know, suffered a severe stroke, and his ability to speak globally was diminished in a moment. We've made a long way to be able to present his idea, or was a cardinal in this supporting this. He will be with us today. That's the first time Yehuda is back on the court. Thank you, Yehuda. And this moment is very meaningful for us today. It's a big accomplishment to get here, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity for you, Yehuda. Those of you who are abroad, came from all over the place, thank you very much. Really, I know what it's like to fly those long hours, and I'm not jealous. In this session, we will also have a live question and answers, because we're going to run some questions and, of course, some interesting things with our guests in the audience and you as well. And those, I don't know if we are alive, people can talk to us, but if you can talk to us, we will listen, and we're probably not going to answer unless you will know how to do this. Anyway, as having said, let me, a real privilege and a real respect and honor, Samer Hadjichia, for first remarks.
זה לא פייר, גדעון, עכשיו אני צריך לדבר בערבית. אז אני אעשה תרגום סימולטני למה שכתבתי בעברית. Distinguished guests, good afternoon. צהריים טובים, السلام عليكم. من دواعي السرور والشرف أن أكون معكم هنا على أرض مصر العربية، بلد التاريخ والعراقة، ماد الحضارة والفنون، بلد الشعراء والكتاب، البلد الذي ذكر في القرآن الكريم ما يشير إلى مكانته، إذ قال تعالى في كتابه العزيز في سورة يوسف: ادخلوا مصر إن شاء الله آمنين. صدق الله العظيم. ونحن اليوم هنا على الضفة الغربية للبحر الأحمر، من أجمل بقاع الأرض الحاضنة لطبيعة وبيئة خلابة، بعد أن كنت أمس على الضفة الشرقية لنفس الهدف: تحويل البنوك والاستثمار من أجل اقتصاد مرن والحفاظ على البيئة. هذه قضية عالمية حاسمة في حياتنا جميعاً، فالحاجة الملحة للحفاظ على بيئة خلابة محمية من انبعاث غازات الدفيئة والأضرار المناخية منبثقة عنها محسومة علمياً، ونتائجها لا حدود لها، بل تطال صحة وحياة كل واحد منا من كل شعوب المنطقة، وتؤثر في مستقبلنا ومستقبل الأجيال الشابة. لذا علينا رص صفوف وعقول المنطقة والعالم بأسره لإيجاد حلول عملية تحد من انبعاث غازات الدفيئة، ولتوفير الطاقة بتكلفة مقتدرة للجميع. الشرق الأوسط المتجدد، كما قال هنا بالأمس الرئيس الإسرائيلي يتحق هيرتزوغ، أصبح حاضنة المستقبل لهذه المهمة السامية. القطاعان الحكومي والخاص هنا في المنطقة بصدد تنفيذ خطط عملية. المستثمرون، المصنعون، المؤسسات المصرفية، كلها جهات حريصة على دعم المشاريع والاستحداثات التكنولوجية الخضراء. نحن في بنك لومي من أعرق وأكبر بنوك المنطقة، نحرص على دعم هذه المشاريع، ونسعى لبناء الشراكات مع بنوك والشركات وصناديق الاستثمار الكبرى في المنطقة، لنوفر للمستثمرين والمبادرين التسهيلات اللازمة من أجل دعم هذا التوجه الذي يصب في مصلحة كوكبنا واستقرار المنطقة ومنفعة شعوبها. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today in light of a global threat, adverse climate changes with long-term and maybe irreversible impact on humanity. There is unequivocal evidence that the Earth is warming at an accelerating pace, and that the root cause is our own activities, mainly those with carbon emission that produces heat-trapping gases. Consequently, moderate, predicted, and smooth weather patterns are disrupted. This is not the kind of disruption that Mother Nature, we, or our kids welcome. In fact, this imbalance is already claiming its toll across the globe, across all socioeconomic societies, and other forms of life on Earth. No need for your imagination to wander far to witness the implications. Here in beautiful Sharm el-Sheikh, the temperature has been rising, reaching 2 degrees Celsius, higher than a century ago. Egypt loses 5% in annual GDP due to weather pollution. Between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause approximately 250,000 deaths per year for malnutrition, malaria, and other extreme weather-related diseases. The direct costs and damage to global health are estimated at $3 billion per year by 2030. While science is providing us with evidence that the window of opportunity to cope with irreversible adverse climate change is closing rapidly, same science is providing us with great business opportunities for climate tech. We have no room for excuse for further delay facing off the challenge, which we brought on ourselves. This conference, COP27, should be a real opportunity, and maybe the last, to present an actual resolutions for immediate action to bring a lasting solution. In this respect, Israel is making inroads in leading climate tech innovation and investment, as well as setting up responsible financing policies by the financial sector. The spirit of the Israeli private sector, coupled with the tailwind from the regulators, the incentives from the Innovation Authority, along with the Israeli government R&D, which reached $280 million between 2018 and 2020, have created an impressive ecosystem in climate tech innovation. Climate tech startups occupy a growing proportion of all newly founded Israeli startups, groundbreaking a wide range from sustainable food tech to climate smart agriculture to clean energy systems to sustainable mobility and transport and many more. You are all welcome to visit the Israel Pavillion and see the incredible innovation yourselves. גבירותיי ורבותיי, ראה כל מעשיי כמה נעים ומשובחים הם, וכל מה שבראתי בשבילך בראתי. תן דעתך שלא תקלקל ותחריב את עולמי, שאם תקלקל, אין מי שתקן אחריך. קהלת. ואומרים גם, נאה דורש, נאה מקיים. אכן, ללאומי כבנק הוותיק והמוביל בישראל כבר 120 שנה. יש מחויבות עליונה, גם נושאי הסביבה והקיימות. כך ובאופן תקדימי בבנקאות הישראלית, פרסמנו השנה, במקביל לדוח הכספי השנתי, את הדוח של אחריות חברתית, כי ראינו בהם כשני חלקים של השלם. אני מזמין אתכם לקרוא ולהתרשם ממגוון רוחב ועומק העשייה של לאומי ועובדיו בתחום. בשנה החולפת הגדרנו יעדים כמותיים ארוכי טווח לתחום ה-SDG. במסגרת זו החלטנו להגדיל את המימון וההשקעות בפרויקטים המקדמים בסביבה ירוקה מ-12 מיליארד ש"ח ל-35 מיליארד ש"ח עד 2030. בחודשים האחרונים דיווחנו על מגוון פרויקטי אנרגיה מתחדשת שבכוונתנו לממן. למשל, 1.5 מיליארד ש"ח, כמעט 400 מיליון דולר, פרויקטים סולאריים של חברת פריים אנרגי. 750 מיליון ש"ח לפרויקטים סולאריים של חברת סול גרין, and 400 מיליון ש"ח לפרויקט הסולארי הגדול בצפונה של ישראל שמוקם על ידי טרה-לייט. גם לרכש פנימה שלנו בלאומי יש יעדים ירוקים, כגון הרחבת השימושים ברכבים חסכוניים בצי של הבנק, שהוא כבר היום כ-55% ממנו היברידי. לצד זאת, מאז 2014, צומצמה טביעת הרגל הפחממית של לאומי ב-50%, ובחמש שנים הקרובות אנו שואפים לצמצם את צריכת החשמל ב-20% נוספים. وختامها مسك لابد من ذكر نهر النيل العظيم رمز الحياة والخيرات والطبيعة أحد أطول الأنهار في العالم. النيل الذي تغنى به الشعراء على مر التاريخ بين قديم وجديد، إذ قال أمير الشعراء أحمد شوقي: النيل العذب هو الكوثر، والجنة شاطئه الأخضر، ريان الصفحة والمنظر، ما أبهى الخلد وما أنظر. تعالوا بنا نكثف جهود لإنقاذ النيل الذي بات يتأثر بتقلبات المناخ وارتفاع درجات الحرارة وعملية التصحر، ونتعاون لإنقاذ شرم الشيخ والبحر الأحمر ومعالم المنطقة والكون لتأمين العيش لأبنائنا بصحة وكرامة. شكرا لكم ودمتم بخير. تدا ربا. Thank you and enjoy a productive conference.
Oren, thank God it was you that I left out. Oren Hyman is here also with us. I ran, there's two Orens here. We're overloaded with Oren. Oren is the founder and the nature of growth. He will talk to us in a minute. The first, we dived in. We're going in now. We're going in. The first thing we will do, I will please welcome for 100 words that took us 2 years to bring about, Professor Kahana, who's going to say a few words, and then we will show his model in a 5-minute presentation. Luckily, we managed to get the whole idea as a film. And right after that, we're going to dive in with his co-author, co-partners, friend, and they've been going forever, Moshe Bareket, who's going to share with us the practicality of what they are talking about and how it goes with bottom up. And then we'll top down, and then we go to you guys with the bottom up approach of Israel. So Professor Kahana, please have the stage.
Dear friends, I'm standing here today after suffering a severe stroke. In one moment, I lost my ability to speak any language, but I didn't lose my spirit. I was paralyzed in a wheelchair, but I didn't lose my brain power or my commitment to research. Recovering from a stroke is just as hard as bringing new paradigms in economics model to life. Our model is based on a real story, the story of my country, Israel. We propose it would be very useful everywhere. Most the developers and the between countries this is needed to deploy today as we are running out of time. Yes, we can.
Achieving Environmental Resilience by Professor Yehuda Kahana. The last 30 years have seen the rise of a post-industrial economy, an economy marked by new underlying rules based on limitless data and information flow. This is contrasted with the previous assumptions of our economy based on limited labor, capital, and land. Our current capitalist economy does not have true competition. It also lacks a fundamental accounting for natural resources and their pricing, things such as water, minerals, societal issues, forestry, animals, and what is commonly known as the commons. The post-industrial economy has significant non-monetary elements. These non-monetary elements should be combined with current economic theories by approximation if there are no exact models. In 2015, all the nations of the world agreed on the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, as the most crucial issues facing humanity that need answering by 2030. These goals include environmental and social goals such as climate action, water, zero hunger, no poverty, reducing inequality, and more. We have less than 9 years to reach these goals. The global sum of money to reach the SDGs is approximately 8 to 14 trillion annually. The global governmental budget is closer to 30 trillion. The ability of governments is constrained by the need to fulfill all the government's roles. The private market and corporations are not willing and are not equipped to do this job because global GNP stands at approximately 100 trillion. This is insufficient to close the SDGs gaps. The government's regulator should raise substantial amounts of capital through a differently fully balanced sustainability budget. This can happen by reallocating investments of the private and business sector, approximately $350 to $400 trillion worth of capital. The regulators have the power to provide incentives to support and enhance a process in which the private sector plays a significant role. It is the power to shift the entire consumption pattern towards saving natural elements and reducing waste. The business sector measures impact by economic or monetary values. But the government should account for damage and profit to the environment, to society, and businesses. The majority of externalities are non-economic values. They're non-monetary. Every economic activity has both positive and negative effects. National accountants can distinguish between activities that harm the society and environment and those actions that benefit society. The sums of capital accounted for will be enormous. This is called a sustainability budget, which can be more or less balanced. Governments will charge taxation on the negative side and pay rewards or subsidies to those on the positive side. Things that can be taxed on the negative side are things such as fossil fuels, unsustainable transportation, consumption of meat, pesticides, construction, pollution of water and oceans, paper, deforestation, clothing, construction, or even warfare. Things that could be subsidized are things that save energy, save water, waste, recycling, cradle-to-cradle technologies, renewable energy, etc. The regulator should distribute subsidies within the capital markets to pensions and insurance, as well as social security systems, those who specialize in mid- and long-term financing, mainly through long-term bonds with a national guarantee. This bond will carry a linkage with the cost of living and should be untradeable. The yield of these bonds will be substantially higher than regular bonds, especially under the current zero interest by the central banks. The ability to offer a high yield on impact investments will create a self-perpetuating cycle. Higher returns on retirement plans will increase the attractiveness of such schemes and the public propensity to save for retirement. This in turn will motivate larger long-term savings and thereby enable to finance more impact investment. The reestablishment of retirement security for millennials and future generations, providing for appropriate accretion of real value on retirement savings. In summary, we suggest a 4-step solution. Promote financing of the SDGs in order to save our existence on the planet. There's no way to solve the problem with the same tools that brought us here. Given the emergency, there's need for top-down education to bring about the incorporation of externalities, meaning non-monetary values, in conjunction with economic ideas, essentially applying environmental, social, and consciousness values alongside our economic metrics. A sustainability budget to complement a national budget and underlying national accounting measurement systems. This will enable to change the production and consumption of the world to be more optimal. We must hit several ambitious targets with a single arrow. fighting climate change, SDG financing, safeguarding pension for millennials, and enhancing job creation.
This was the Professor Kahana's, and thank God we have Moshe Bareket for the last 3 years and Kahana working together, so we can now hear a whole other extension of Moshe's preservation. Moshe, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, hi, thank you very much. I've met Professor Kahana. He was my professor. I was a student, and I've at the time published research, the first research in Israel on environmental liabilities and managing them, managing the risk, accounting for them, and so on. And I've submitted a paper on environmental risk management and insurance. And I think that's what got him into he admits, that's what got him into all interested in climate and environmental at first, and SDGs and so on. We had a luck to meet just before his stroke, a bit before. I was, along my career, academia, banking, insurance, and so on, I also was a regulator. Noga Lev Tzion Nadan is here. We worked when I was at the Securities Authority, the head of Corporation Finance Division. We worked on disclosure, on environmental liabilities, and so on. At the Israeli Capital Market Insurance and Savings Authority, I was looking for ways to enhance investment of institutional investors in climate change and other environmental, actually I was more focused on environmental and ESG initiatives. The outcome of that was that Israel was making a precedent, the first nation around the world that have enacted a law that is encouraging institutional investors, especially pension funds, to invest in infrastructure that cope with climate change adverse effects. This is a law in Israel today. It's the first one. I was looking for more, and then Yehuda presented the idea of doing what our ancestor government, our founding fathers and first governments of Israel have done with the designated bonds. I thought that it's a good idea. However, we need to extend it much more. Myself, I favor off-balance sheet products when the public governments are intervening. And we have started developing this concept, which is a new paradigm for dealing with climate change financing. Doesn't work. Can we move to the next slide? Next slide. Okay, so the issue is, yes. So the issue is, apart from two mottos that I'm taking from Churchill 41 speech, it's time for deed, it's time for action, it's time to put out a roadmap and actual actions. And second one is we have the tools, and we provide a paradigm, we provide a conceptual framework that can be implemented into public-private financing and achieve goals that right now are the current activities. They are not just insufficient to achieve the goals, because the budgets, as you've seen in the presentations, total government expenditures around the globe are only around $30 trillion. And we need about $10 trillion to meet the SDG goals. If talking about only climate change goals, Then IMF in a 2022 recent publication estimated that at the amount of $3 to $6 trillion. Obviously, government budgets cannot satisfy that. But the problem is even more grave. The problem is that when you're looking at innovation, technology that can address those challenges, then you see the facts are that climate tech funds are only, in the last 3 years, they've only raised $3 billion. When we compare that to fintech funds, for example, in the last 3 years, it's more than 100-fold than that, more than $300 billion. So that's part of the problem. And the problem, in essence, is that we are expecting the private sector really to resolve the issues. We are expecting there are different initiatives, disclosure and so on, all positive and contributing initiatives. They are important. However, they convey a message that we rely on the private sector to achieve the equilibrium at the end of the day and inject the money needed. And this is not the case. The case is that most of the economic impact is really in the terms of externalities. Those are externalities. Even if you look at the risk-reward equation, then the risk-reward for a private player is not sufficient. However, a global look at the full risk-reward trade-off, when we add up the externalities, all of a sudden it becomes sensible. This means that we need to change the financing structure between the private and the public sector. However, we cannot do that without the right measurement of those externalities. This is why we came up with the notion of sustainability balance sheet that would measure those impacts, negative and positive. I would elaborate in a second. Based on those measurements, based on this sustainability balance sheet, we can derive the proper incentives in order to bring, at the end of the day, those who can provide the money. Those are the institutional investors, the pension and insurance industries. So, for those of you who recognize the three-legged stool from the theory of pension, we have borrowed that notion, and we are using a three-legged stool that would make our paradigm work. First of all, in national accounting, we need to change national accounting in order to measure those sustainability impacts. Second of all, we need to introduce government incentives in order to have money flying from long-term savings institutions, so insurance, pension, provident funds, and so on. The first point is essential on a macro level. Without having the ability to measure the negative and positive impacts of climate change and emissions and so on the global side, meaning that how it affects public. This is an externality that a private player would not embed in its profitability function. Of course, if we put tolls and penalties and so on, of course it would be embedded. However, what about the positive side? And all those taxation have also impacts and spillovers. The solution would come from really risk sharing and other incentives like yield enhancement and so on that the government would provide to the financial players. And this is what we offer. We offer so based on the sustainability balance sheet, based on the sustainability budget, we will use government incentive to push the financial the finance providers. Now, again, the only reason for having that is that the externalities are very significant in the equation. Otherwise, we would see the private sector itself coming to invest more and more in those initiatives. But obviously, this is not the case. So what we suggest is that we will have a system where regulators would have a role to monitor those incentive systems. Now, the reason I know that this is feasible is because we have done that. We've done that just recently. The Capital Market Insurance and Savings Authority have two initiatives supporting the government. One was to replace the designated bonds in an off-balance sheet mechanism where basically the institutional investors invest in the private market, and instead of guaranteed return, they are provided with guarantees, yield guarantees from the government, so that if they do not achieve a certain level, then the government would complement that. So this is a yield-enhancing mechanism, an off-balance sheet mechanism, rather than financing it through the government budgets. Another initiative was to induce investment in tech by institutional investors. Institutional investors were not investing in startups at all, and we have targeted startups that are after round B, and we have laid out a 2 billion shekels incentive mechanism where the government provided a safety net, and that have allowed that 2 billion shekels fly like instantly. If we have rolled out $2 billion, there was demand for $2 billion. For climate change, I spoke with the Innovation Authority. We have partnered on that plan, and there is an intention to make $10 billion initiative like that, where we will have a safety net. And this is exactly what we need to have between the private sector and the public sector. The right incentives, the right motivation from governments, and governments would not do that if they are not measured by the impact themselves, the externalities. If the externalities are being measured by the sustainability balance sheet, then there would be a trigger to lay out those incentives, and then the financing is going to come. However, if we are not putting the incentive right now, even not waiting for sustainability accounting to develop, we know how the standard setters are taking their time sometimes. We need to put incentives right now because the principles are there. And this is how we are going to induce more money, especially into innovation and technology. And again, research is building on layers of research and ideas. And this is, we've borrowed Professor Hart, Cornell University Professor Hart. His notion is that where human impact is population times affluence times technology, he offers to move technology to the denominator. This is a simple idea, but a very powerful idea. The idea is that instead of having technology enhancing our impact on the planet, let's have technology help us harnessing that impact. And the way to do that is to structure incentives tied to or designed as infrastructures. We know how we have the skills to do that, and really in order to induce institutional investors that are not going to invest on a standalone technology, but if it is tied up to proper incentives and proper business activities, then we can induce that amount of money and innovation and climate tech funds would be able to attract not $3 billion a year, but hundreds of billion dollars a year. Thank you very much.
So top down, part one, we're looking at YK Center, we look at the transformation needed, and we've heard the terms radical transformation. We've been looking at a nation transforming themselves to an SDG nation. We call it transform nations. And that's the top down. Now let's go bottom up. We got three great players here, and I would like them to introduce their work. Oren Hyman is doing fabulous work in one part of the south of Israel, Sha'ar Negev and Sderot area. And I would love you to introduce what you guys doing there in financial models that you are doing, you know, how you guys doing there in your part of it.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I had two presentations prepared. A more serious financial model and somewhat of a lighter introduction to our model. And after the very excellent introduction of YK Center and of Dr. Bereket now, let's choose the lighter version. Nice to meet you all. Very humbled to be in the presence of so many of my heroes. Mr. Hajjieche from Bank Leumi, and I know there are also representatives of Bank Pavillion here, the representatives of the State of Israel, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I see representatives here. I see representatives of the UN task forces that are working with Israel on the various challenges. I see the leaders, my heroes of the NGO world, Maya Jacobs and Victor Weiss are here. I see members of a Startup Nation Central. It's amazing to see us all come together in order to find the way for Israel to really be a real player in the world of impact, in the world of reducing climate change. I this morning had a very exciting moment. You know, we have world leaders here. We just saw John Kerry a few minutes ago speaking in the U.S. Forum right next to us. And this morning, coming out of the hotel, I met two of my personal celebrities. Can we show the first slide? This is a real photo of Tal Ronen helping Professor Yehuda Kahana set up his tie. Two of my heroes and sources of inspiration where for, I'm guessing, almost 30 years by now, I've been following their work on really finding the right financial model for us as mankind to fix all of the damage that we've been doing to this planet. So thank you, Tal, thank you, Professor Kahana, for being such an amazing source of inspiration for me. I am a father of three children, an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-year-old. Can we see the next slide? This is them coming into Egypt in April. For Passover, we were doing the reverse commute. Instead of coming up to Israel from Egypt, we were going down. And my middle son turned 5 in February. His name is Bar. During the week of his birthday, I came across a report of the World Health Organization saying that 22% of children at the age of 5 on our globe do not reach their potential height because of malnutrition. Let's put this next slide up. Let's look at that together. 22% of 5-year-old children worldwide do not reach their normal height due to lack of access to nutritious food. This number, 22%, has been something that is following me since reading this report. It's been a source of a lot of sadness for me, but also of a lot of inspiration and motivation. Can we move to the next slide? I don't have, oh, I do have the stick here. Oh, here we go. Anyway, I have somebody working for me, so that's great. 22%. And what is it that we can do, we as mankind, we as developed nations, we as the State of Israel, in order to reduce this number? We are talking in COP27, in this important conference, about the environmental impact of mankind, but there is another crisis that is going side by side with the environmental crisis, with the climate crisis, and that is the global food crisis. We are going through a major, major crisis. Anybody here in this room has been to a supermarket in the last 2 years? Food is becoming expensive. We are losing more and more varieties of food. There are some specialists that are saying that in 5 years we are not going to have coffee, we are not going to have sesame, and ladies, sit down, we're not going to have chocolate. There is a big a list of reasons why some of the varieties that we are accustomed to as mankind are not going to be available for our children. The global food crisis and the global environmental crisis are going side by side. Yesterday, the person who opened this podium here, President Yitzhak Buji Herzog, coined a very interesting phrase, I thought. He took previous President Peres, may he rest in pieces, expression of a new Middle East, which we are actually living through with the Abraham Accords in the last 2 years, and he called it the renewable, or the renewed Middle East. So I congratulate Professor Herzog for taking such a strong point about Israel's responsibility as a country, as a state, as a strong economy, as a strong regional partner in the Middle East, to make sure that our children will have not less resources than we have from a earth, from a sustainability, from environmental perspective. So I congratulate Professor Herzog, who actually was speaking here from this podium yesterday. I understand that yesterday afternoon I was not here, but another two important people, if we can look at the next slide, were speaking here. Dror Bean, who is the chairman of the, or the president, or the managing director of the Israeli Innovation Authority, who was speaking here with Masamba, who was leading the UN Global Climate Pavillion. And Mr. Bean was speaking about Israel's role from an economic perspective in innovation. I don't know if you know, but Israel is the leading country in the world. 4.9% of our tax money, of the GDP, is funneled back directly into innovation grants, 4.9%. I was recently speaking in Naples, and the number there is 1.4%. All of Europe is 2.1% of GDP is going back into innovation. And we're talking about a country who has one of the highest defense budgets as part of the GDP, Israel. 4.9% since 1971, year after year after year. It doesn't matter which government it was. We are taking more money than any other country in the world and bringing it back into innovation. And I'd like to congratulate the Ministry of Economy and the Israeli Innovation Authority for funneling these funds in such a responsible and great manner. This is basically the goal. Our goal is to maintain a steady flow of fresh nutritional produce, nutritional both from vitamin and minerals and from a protein perspective, and to do it in an economical way. As Dr. Bareket and as Tal was speaking before, when we talk about economical, we are no longer looking at economical just from a financial perspective. We're also looking at the externalities. When I grow a fresh banana for my child to consume, what did I have to pay to grow this banana? What are the SDGs that are losing points when the issue of poverty and of food for all, when these SDGs increase points? So agriculture has been a long-time enemy of the environment. I don't know how many of you know that more than 25% of global pollution is caused because of agriculture. Again, I'm saying that agriculture is an enemy of our environment for many years. Probably as a sector, the biggest pollutant is agriculture. We're talking about most agriculture in the world is still being conducted in very primitive means with very little responsibility to their environmental impact. And with this happening in the world and our need to increase nutritional, affordable food, there is almost a paradox here. And when such a major paradox happens in the world, there is only one solution to resolve it. 21st century solution is technology. Israel, everybody in this podium, I'm sure, in this room knows how much Israel is a major player in innovation, in creativity, and in technology. And Israel needs to use these resources, use its ability not only to create phenomenal fintech and phenomenal ERP systems and amazing medical devices and pharmaceutical companies, but also companies that first and foremost are dealing with sustainability, both from an environmental perspective and from a food security perspective. All of this led me, I was speaking to friends here from one of the largest law firms in Israel. They say, hey, aren't you a lawyer from New York? Yeah, as I spent most of my life practicing law in New York City, I was running a firm called Shibolet for 18 years, doing a lot of work for Israeli high-tech companies. And coming back to Israel a few years ago, I decided to convert, to be reborn. And I am now spearheading a group of 65 co-founders. This sounds crazy, but it's actually happening, who have come together, created a vision together, and the vision is to create the largest agtech innovation center in the world. Not in Israel, not in the region, in the world. The largest center of science, which all it's going to be doing over the next 8 years is to create successful, globally disruptive agtech companies. Agtech is a new phrase. Agritech is another coined phrase. The technologies behind agriculture. This is biology and genomics. This is chemistry. This is materials. This is irrigation and energy systems. This is post-harvest related after I pick the fruit from the tree. What happens with this apple? The whole supply chain management of fresh produce and extending shelf life of fruit. This is aquaculture and animal well-being. All technologies, this is plant sciences, this is environmental sciences. Israel has over 1,000 PhDs who are dealing with these issues, more than probably the whole Middle East. We have one center in Israel, the ARO, the Volcani Center, the Volcani Institute, which has on a daily basis more than 400 PhDs coming to work in the same facility in all of the various industries that I just mentioned, looking for solutions of how to grow nutritious, fresh produce in an affordable way, economically and environmentally. And we are tacking on, we are utilizing the science coming out of the Volcani Center, coming out of the amazing academic institutions in Israel, the Weizmann Institute, the Technion, Tel Aviv University, Hebrew University, which has the largest agricultural faculty in the Middle East, and other universities. We are utilizing their science. We are taking advantage of the technologies that their tech transfer offices are ready to commercialize, taking these technologies, choosing the right technologies, building teams, supporting these teams by large grants made available by the US, by Europe, but mostly by Israel. This 4.9% of our GDP, these Israeli Innovation Authority grants. There's a whole set of different grants, all of them relating to using deep technology, and now the IIA is putting a strong focus on sustainability technologies, and together we are going to be creating companies. The companies are going to be created in a state-of-the-art innovation center in the south of Israel, in a town called Sderot. How many people here have been to Sderot? Yeah, hopefully you were there during quiet times. We have about 2 weeks a year in Sderot where there's a lot of action. Our neighbors in Gaza are very much into renewal of materials. We send them electric poles, and then they cut them up, and then they send them back for 2 weeks every year. So Sderot is basically a center well known for other things than innovation, and we are trying to bring Dafka to Sderot, especially to Sderot, especially to the corner which is right by Gaza. It is close to Egypt. It is close to Jordan and to the Saudi Arabia, the southern area of Israel, the Negev desert. We want the innovation, the cry out of new agricultural technologies to come from this region. The Israeli Innovation Authority from 2018 is supporting new initiatives coming out in the Gaza enveloping area at a rate of 75%. So a technology that gets government approval will, for every $1 million of investment that we put in, $750,000 come from the government. It is a non-dilutive grant. The government does not get any shares. The government says, take this money, create deep technology, help the Western Negev, help Israel, help the world. If this works and you have sales, give me a few percentage points until the loan is paid back. If this doesn't work, it's okay. Forget about it. Let's work on another technology. This is how Israeli Innovation Authority grants work, and it's a phenomenal financial element of a innovation center. There is no other place in the world where such generous government. I'm not supposed to be speaking so well about my government. I know that this isn't politically correct, but in this sense, our government is performing an excellent job. Chapter 2, sentence 15 of Genesis. So Adam is created, and God looks down and says, I'm giving you this garden of Eden. And he's saying, I need you to do two things about it. I need you to grow upon this land, and I need you to take care of it. I need you to watch over it. Watching over our planet Earth. We have not been doing such a good job, which is why 120,000 of us are spending a week down here in Sharm el-Sheikh. And it's time for mankind to take back responsibility on looking after our Earth. In respect to growing, that's what we are going to be creating in Sderot, finding the new ways to grow nutritional, affordable food for third world countries and for the full world. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And now our dear friend and real game changer, Yossi Abramovich. You guys, we have to evacuate the room by 5, so we need to keep the times. Okay, let's go.
Okay, hi everybody. On the slides, just go to the one with the picture with 4 solar fields. So we're just gonna do, one more. Okay, stop there. All right, Yehuda, kol hakavod. Honored to be here in your presence and inspired by you. I also have a lot of genuine affection for every member of your team. You have a great, warm, and smart team. And I don't know if you know this, the president of the YK Center came with his grandchildren to the Arava to see the first part of this story, which I'll describe. I come more from the world of climate action and figured out business models. Some worked and some didn't work. I'm going to tell you 2 or 3 examples of things that have worked. So in the Arava, when we had the idea for solar energy, utility scale, there was a $1 million grant that UJ Federation of Toronto put on the table to the Moatza. $1 million. That million we turned into, that was a donation over 10 years, $100,000 a year. We raised $3 million in friends and family. So we already have a 3x right there for Arava Power Company to do the first solar field. We turned that then into $15 million from Siemens. And overall in the Arava, we and some others, we've deployed $400 million of investment in the Arava, making it the first region in the world to hit 100% daytime solar, and soon it'll be day and night. So just follow the leverage trail there. $1 million in philanthropy, $3 million in high-risk friends and family, $15 million in institutional, and then 400 million in institutional. So we went through an entire de-risking, and so from the philanthropists are happy because they don't have $400 million, but they got the results, right? The friends and family are happy. It took some time. They're getting dividends. Siemens was happy. They also built a lot of the fields and made money. And then all the big funds in Tel Aviv and Herzliya, you know, including one of your competitors. I'm sorry you weren't there then. Everybody won in this leverage chain, but even more so, we gave some shares to the Arava Institute. This is Maya's model now to help like Adam Teva V'Din. So every year there's a dividend check that goes from Arava Power Company to the Arava Institute. So if any of the efforts that you're doing in terms of climate funds or climate tech hits, you know, Tammy and Amit would be very, very happy to be on the recipient end. We did a small family foundation from some of those shares, and it supports climate justice in Israel, meaning Bedouin solar, right? This happens every year from that first picture, Keturah, and also the youth activism, the Strike for Climate. Nika was here before. So the ripple effect, we have lived very, very successfully. Now, Israel's a small little country. Here's Nika. Israel's a small little country, and so the question is, if there's 600 million people in Africa, how do we play this? How do we play this out? And so now go back to just stay with the one slide with 4. Okay. No one had ever done utility scale in Africa before, and so we had to prove the applicability of this model. In Rwanda, it's shaped, if you notice, like Africa. I don't know if you can see from that angle. We took $500,000 in friends and family. We got $700,000 in grants, and we deployed $24 million in project finance. And in project finance, as you know, we get also leverage, right? 20, 30% equity, that's all you need, because the financial institutions, they know how to come in and do the long-term loans. So you get leverage upon leverage upon leverage. Every year, the field throws off not only a good return to investors, about 14%, but built into the business model, not charity, but as an expense, there's an orphan youth village on whose land, the Agahoza Shalom. We cover the healthcare costs of 500 orphans over 25 years of this village operating. So here you have, again, the recycling and leveraging of money again and again. Now, Rwanda, very professionally managed country. The question is, most countries in Africa, less so. So we went to the poorest, most broken country in Africa, and that's Burundi. And the proposition there is if you're going to turn millions into billions, you want it to reach the most vulnerable people on the planet. And everyone said it was going to be impossible, and it nearly was. It's not a good experience. However, there's a happy ending. According to the IMF, the average per capita in Burundi is $274. It's a heartbreaker. It's a complete heartbreaker. So there, we took friends and family money, about $500,000. We got about $300,000 in grants from the US. It's nice that we're next door because they do most of my financing. And then we deployed about $20 million, the largest private sector investment in energy in the poorest country on the planet, which means none of these countries and none of these financial institutions have any excuses at this point. And so this is a really important point. If you can do it in Burundi, you can get this kind of leverage, little money leading to medium money, leading to relatively big money, certainly for a poor country. This is a model made in the Arava in which we're exporting. Now we have a moral and fiduciary responsibility to scale this. And so we're doing around 25 million, which we can turn easily into about $600 million just on that particular leverage. Now, I'm not a financial engineer. I understood most of what you put on the board. I'm a little more simple. So I have not a counter proposal, but an additional proposal, and I'm writing about it in Newsweek. In about a week, it'll be out. And that is, for the poorest countries here, if maybe all those systems that you describe are the right way to go, but I'm an impact investor. I just want a certain amount of certainty. If all 54 countries had the same feed-in tariff, 10 cents across the board. No negotiations, less opportunity for corruption. I can do my financial models. I don't have to go into all these. I have certainty. I can just build my models. They all have to go to the World Bank or the African Development Bank or the US government for the guarantees anyway. It can be imposed. If there was certainty across the board, like there was early on in the Israeli market, we knew what the tariff was, and we deployed the capital. No problem, truly no problem. And in Africa, the poorest places have the least amount of certainty. Give us, the investors, certainty. Now, Gidon Bahar, Your Excellency, you are an authentic ambassador on climate. You're my friend, you're my hero, but I'm going to disagree publicly on one little thing that relates to this. Yes, insurance is important, but you know what, folks? We've been trying for 7 years for Israel to have a development financial institution. Like all of these things that we did, not one agora came from Israel and the state of Israel. It broke my heart each time. The Reshuta this didn't know how to eat it. The banks didn't know how to. I know you're different, and we're going to test that. You know, but not one little thing. We had to schlep all over the world to be able to put. And again, the U.S. has been number one to put this together. It's time for Israel to have a development finance institution. Only the Treasury has held it up. It's been ready to go, and give us then the financial tools, right, to be able to leverage. Because if we have our own DFI, we can go to the Green Climate Fund and ask for $2 billion for Israeli companies to be able to deploy and to lift dignity all over Africa, energy, water, food, across the whole board. So I hope these examples have been helpful, but there's money out there. There just isn't the certainty that we in the private sector, impact sector needs, and the ripple effects. We've already been able to show amazing transformation in the communities in which we're working. So give us the tools to be able to take our millions to go to the billions and show everybody else in the world. It's a leverage play. If we do it, right, as a country, then the trillions will come. Shine on.
Thank you so much. What a heart. I love this guy. What a heart. The last and not least, listen, this is amazing. You let people share what's going on. You'll find a miracle. This is amazing wizards. The last and not least, the youngest one, you have the longest period. We're going to be gone. You'll still work with the SDGs. Oren Hyman, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. I know it's a hard time, and I'm the last speaker. So please bear with me. It's going to be short. It's going to be interesting. My name is Oren Kaplun. I'm from Israel's Clean Money Forum, and I'm here to show a case study for responsible investing in Israel. Now, before I begin, as you all know, according to the IPCC, we need to cut our emissions by almost 50% by the end of the decade and reach net zero by 2050. Now, let me ask you all a question. What is the most important thing that you can do right now to help meet this target and to actually get us to the net zero that we all need to be? High on that list, you can find going vegan or giving up flying. But actually, the most important thing is to make sure your investment do not fund the fossil fuel industry, but rather invest in climate solutions. Now, how do we move and how do we take this fact and turn it into a movement? And how do we leverage the financial system to fight the climate crisis? Now, we need to do two things. We need to do two things. One, we need to invest in SDG and ESG compliant companies that are actually looking and providing climate solutions. But at the same time, we need to divest from polluting companies, and especially the fossil fuel industry. Now, this is a global movement. More than 40 trillion US dollars already been divested from fossil fuel companies by more than 1,500 different organizations. Now, some familiar names from it is the Vatican, the British royal family, Oxford and Harvard universities, and the Rockefeller and the Ford foundations. In Israel, in 2020, we founded Israel Clean Money Forum, which is an umbrella NGO leading the divestment movement in Israel. And here you can see some of the logos of the organizations that are part of. Some of them are international organizations, such as Greenpeace, Extinction Rebellion, and the Fossil Free Movement. And in the past 2 years, we actually achieved a lot. So the first thing that we achieved is, together with the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, we built and launched the first and only fossil-free index at the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. And as you can see here, we already have 5 leading institutions in Israel that are divesting from fossil fuels. So Migdal and Altshuler Shaham, 2 of Israel's largest financial institutions, declared a divestment from fossil fuels and a net zero target. And we have here 3 other financial institutions that are already clean from fossil fuels, already divested completely according to our criteria: Value Square, OFEC, and Kramim Investing Firm. Now, one of the most important things that we do is that each quarter we rank all of Israel's financial institutions based on their share investment in fossil fuel companies. Now, this is huge because for the first time in Israel, we allow individuals to choose their pension funds not only based on past performance and management fee, but also on the actual share of responsibility that their money is doing to the climate crisis. Now, I started this presentation by saying that we need to leverage the financial system to fight the climate crisis. The truth is, that we wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. Governments doesn't have enough money to fund what we need to do. And I love to give this example. The Israeli budget for 2022 was around $170 billion US, while in Israeli pension funds alone, there is more than $700 billion US. We need to take this money and invest in the right companies and divest from the companies that are creating this crisis. Now, here from COP27 on the financial day, I'm calling for more pension funds in Israel, investment institutions, banks, to declare the net zero target and to divest from fossil fuels. We need all of you in order to solve this crisis. Thank you so much, and happy to connect.
See, each one of those people bring a character and commitment and passion, and just imagine 360 degrees people like that. It's possible. Oren, thank you for the work you're doing. Oren and Yossi, each, charging and developing. I would like to open it to question. We have 5 minutes, and I see Gideon is already being called to start the other meeting. And I also have some people from abroad. Did I see Simon Wazir is being gone? Those heavyweights are coming and going. You don't have to say hello, goodbye in the same time, trying to get them to sit like this person, like it's be there and listening. It's fantastic. You guys, at the end of the presentation, 5 minutes to go. Finance Day, COP27. What must be said that you haven't said yet?
I just spoke.
Maybe have it.
Yeah, you got microphones, guys. Use the microphones. Yeah.
So maybe address it through questions. What the crowd would like to hear.
Yes.
There's one thing I want to say. This is the greatest economic opportunity in the history of civilization. $100 trillion has to move, folks. $100 trillion. Come on. Israel, wake up. The Israeli government is asleep at the wheel. Wake up. Set an example at home if you want to export this stuff. We're, we don't have the right policies at home on the climate and on renewables. How do you expect us to credibly go out there in the whole world while you're undermining us? So wake up. There's $100 trillion that can move. Don't we want some of that to come, a large part of that to come into our economy?
Vince, thank you. Get some passion. It's always working. Yes.
One question. We're doing these amazing things. We have the amazing opportunities. We know what the challenges are. We have brilliant alternatives. Tell me what's missing.
For us, it's the small money.
I'd love to hear from each of you. What's missing?
Okay, so For us, it's the first de-risking money, right? Let's call it the $20 million for us to go get the $600 million. It's the feasibilities and the studies and the, we have to pay for the guarantees, that kind of stuff. It's the small money that's the hardest. Everybody wants to come into a great climate project at the finish line, but there's a market failure. No one wants to pay for the process to get there. Well, that's why the poorest people, the big climate, the gazillions that every year we come together at COP or a promise, doesn't get to the kids on the streets in Western Uganda where I just was, and into the orphanages. It doesn't make 1 ounce of difference in their lives. It's a market failure for the planning intermediary project preparation.
Okay.
I think that in the agricultural technology platforms in Israel, the answer is that there's nothing missing. We actually figured it out. We have it all. I spent yesterday all day in the AgriVest conference where representatives of 250 Israeli ag tech companies doing phenomenal things, all based on Israeli science, most of them supported by Israeli government grants. Harold here is running an incubator himself for several years. Incubators, innovation centers, early stage funds in Israel have everything that they need to succeed. And it's no wonder if you look towards the US and you look at NASDAQ, you see there are more Israeli traded companies, there were more Israeli unicorns born in the last 3 years than all of Europe and Asia combined on NASDAQ. So yeah, we have everything that it needs to create the right innovation. Now we figured out that sustainable innovations is what the world needs, and we're there. It's happening. It's happening as we speak.
Let me take what Yosef has stated very correctly. However, if you have $300 trillion business opportunity, one of the huge opportunities ever, why isn't it happening? And it's not happening exactly because of the reasons that we have described. If you expect the private sector to solve it on its own, it's not going to happen. The risk-reward profile doesn't make sense. So somebody has to come up, measure the externalities, add them to the equation, and then it's going to make sense.
Yes, right there.
One short word. Yeah. So
We'll get everybody.
my 2 cents about it is that we kind of like need to change our mindset. When we think about long-term investment and when we think about pension funds, it doesn't make sense that we invest in companies that are directly hurting our future. So when we think about pension funds, and I have money now in my pension fund is being saved to create me a better future. We need to think where this money should be invested. Do we want this money to be invested in factories that are currently hurting my future and our present, or we want to have pension funds and want to leverage this money in order to create a better future? And I think we need to change our mindset in the financial system, and we are kind of like leading the way on that.
Right, if I can may add to that, Ben Schenker from Cura Pipe System, Israel. So we are in the business of water. So I think our Power present a case where there is a good business model in the sense that you are very successful based on the fact that energy has a cost, whereas water is not an economic product, not enough, or not today. In many cases, it's not accounted for in the right way. In some cases, it's not even metered. So water is, in many cases, not in a full economic product in the sense that in our case, a business model is missing, and this also relates to your offering. How we can, incentivize, decision makers to get the water a real value, which would enable the market to use technologies such as ours. We actually take water losses and we harvest this and make it as a water source. But at the end of the day, there is an investment to this, which the utilities cannot finance, and also the private sector would not finance this because again, water is not correctly priced. So that's part of the answer, and I think what you're offering could be a solution, but this is really in a very general aspect of a plan, you know, of incentivizing, and this will happen.
I think it's important to notice how different water is than electricity, than mobility, than agriculture. Each of the sectors in each of the subsectors requires different creative financial thinking.
Now it's lacking.
Thank you. Harold?
I just want to mention that we have to listen very carefully to what Oren Kaplun in this specific example. The problem is that the pension fund is money that should be invested in us. And this is the big problem, because this is the big money. Don't forget, the problem of solar, for example, is not that there is no money, because somebody is doing solar project. Bank Leumi and Banca Pavillion, all the banks wants to finance that project, making good money for them, good money for Doral, Nofar, Shikunu Binui, all the solar developers in Israel and abroad. So there is a business, and this is the reason why it's succeeding. This is not the problem. The problem is that if we want to cut emissions, we have to massively scale the production outside China or outside Ecuador. It doesn't really matter if it's China or Ecuador. We cannot have all the oil of the sun in one country. This is the problem. And I think that the water problem is a real problem. The solar problem is solved. It's cheap enough, the cheaper form of energy. So we have to look for not what is the problem for financing, because we have financing. Everyone is financing in some way all the developers in the world, but not in Burundi and in Rwanda. This is a market failure that should be probably solved by making a business for people that want to invest in Burundi. Solar energy sector, I don't see the problem of financing anymore. We have to bring the pension funds to invest there and have their returns. That's the whole story.
Thank you very much. Listen, it was great being with you. Have a great day and see you next time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So what